So it has been just about a week since Halloween Ends has debuted in cinema and on Peacock, and I went to go see it opening night, and I wanted to come on here and do a review right away, but I have to work, so I couldn't do it. And in a way, I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I needed time to marinate on this movie. There is a lot to unpack, and there's a lot that was unexpected that I wasn't expecting going in. The trailers build the movie up to be one thing, and what we got is something completely different. So I needed time to marinate on my thoughts about this movie, but now I'm ready to come on here and give them. So let's dig into Halloween Ends.
It's Halloween. We're gonna have a good time tonight.
So, honest opinion right off of the bat, I'm not gonna pussyfoot around it. Did I love the movie? Did I hate the movie? I will say that I do like it, and I know for a lot of you hardcore Halloween fans, that's probably not the opinion you wanted to hear coming from me, but I do enjoy the movie. However, that comes with quite a few asterisks because it is a problematic movie. And I know a lot of people have gone on Twitter and Facebook and social media and have said they do like the movie just based on the fact that it tried to do something different. And I will admit, I do like that too. I do like that it did something different. However, I don't feel like the third movie in a trilogy is the right time to experiment with something different. It's one of the problems that I did have with the movie. Plus, I don't feel like it's the right time to also introduce a bunch of new concepts and themes. I mean, this probably should have been done in either the second movie or it should have been done in a fourth movie that takes place after this or an anthology series. I don't think it was the right time to introduce these new ideas and concepts into the third act of a three-part story. It just all felt like too much being crammed into too little. Now, if you have seen this movie, obviously you know that the bulk of the movie does not focus around Michael Myers and Laurie. It focuses around Corey, Allison, and Laurie in this sort of weird triangle shit that's going on. And the movie kind of feels more like a love story, a bastardized love story in a Halloween movie. And I'm not opposed to that. Like I said, I do like the shakeup. However, I don't really buy Corey and Allison's relationship. I feel like it moves way too fast. I understand that they're both damaged souls that are looking for like love and trust in somebody else. And sometimes in those situations, people do kind of throw themselves in feet first into the deep end of the pool, and it doesn't always work out, and it's just, you know, maybe the more I think about it, maybe it's the most realistic form of a relationship that's ever been on film. I mean, who knows? I enjoyed the Corey Cunningham character and the arc and his story that he goes through, but it does feel like it should have been like a 10-part Netflix series that, you know, part of an anthology that takes place after this third movie, because you don't do something like this in the third act of a trilogy. Think of it like a storybook, or, you know, the conventional story arc structure in a story. You know, you have your first act, your second act, and your third act. In a trilogy, technically your third act, it's supposed to be the climax of everything. It's supposed to be the resolution and the build-up and the final confrontation and the resolution to everything that was set up in the previous two movies. Now is not the time to shift focus onto another new character. You don't do that in a third act. For example, look at Return of the Jedi. It would be like if they spent the original Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back focused on Luke and his struggles with Vader, and then all of a sudden in the third movie, they shift the focus completely off of Luke and introduce this new character that's kind of being turned to the dark side by Vader. It just doesn't work. It doesn't flow properly. And that's how I feel when Halloween Ends, is that it is a good story. Was it the good story for a third act of a trilogy? Probably not. And speaking of trilogies, I'm kind of over it by this point. It seems like everything that comes out has to be a trilogy. You know, we gotta do 3 films. And I feel like Star Wars is to blame for that. Star Wars kind of made it fashionable with trilogies. Like, oh, we need 3 stories to tell this whole tale, to tell this whole saga. No, you don't. Why do you need to adhere to rules? And I feel like that's where a lot of the issues come in, is where they're trying to fit story elements and sometimes too much story into 3 films, and sometimes that's not going to work. Sometimes 3 films is too much for a story, sometimes it's too little. Why not just play it by ear? Why not be like, hey, let's tell this story in 4 films, let's tell it in 5. Why does it need to be 3? I'm just over trilogies at this point. I wish film studios and companies would just stay away from them. Fuck trilogies. But now let's get to Corey taking the mask off Michael. I know a lot of people on social media has said that this makes Michael look really weak and they dogged him out. I personally don't think so, because I don't think those same people are remembering in Halloween H2O when Michael is begging for his sister's help at the end before she chops off his head. I mean, that's pretty damn weak. And I don't think they remember Halloween Resurrection when Busta Rhymes karate kicks Michael out a frickin' window and Michael stands there and takes it. And not only that, but then number 3, later on in that movie, when Busta Rhymes shows up and shocks Myers in the balls and Michael lets out a scream like a ghost whale, and that is how he is defeated in that movie. It is terrible. Absolutely terrible. Nothing that Ends does is as terrible, in my opinion, as those 2 incidents, or those 3 incidents in the Halloween franchise. Those take the cake. However, I don't fully agree with the way they made it look, because it just looks weird. I mean, Michael's just standing there, and all of a sudden Corey just walks up to him to grab his mask and kind of easily overpowers him and then takes it and leaves. The defense to this, I will say, for everybody that says it makes Myers look weak, is that Michael eventually gets his. He comes back, kills Corey, and takes his mask back. So Michael gets his revenge in a way. Plus, I choose to rationalize it in a way that the evil that's in Corey is starting to awaken. It's starting to make him more powerful, whereas the evil in Michael has maybe been weakened, or, he's not as strong yet. He's not up to 100%. Because when Corey drags the cop down for Michael to kill, we can see Michael is just kind of in shambles, and then he seems to kind of get powered back up with each kill. So is Michael's evil feeding off of killing? Because that's what it kind of seemed like. And if he is, maybe he's not 100% yet, and Corey was able to take advantage of that. Or maybe it was the evil in Michael that was kind of transferring over to Corey that was weakening Michael in that moment, because maybe the evil found a slightly stronger vessel at the time to work through in Corey. But I don't know. I'm not the writer of this. I think if I was, I would have tried to write something a little bit more clear and concise. This leaves a lot of ambiguity to what is going on, and in a way, I guess that's kind of the thing. You don't want to explain Michael too much, but in this instance, with so much that is going on, I feel like a little bit of explanation is warranted. One of the other things I do take umbrage in this movie with is Laurie's PTSD, because it felt like this should have been in Halloween 2018, and Laurie's PTSD from Halloween 2018 probably should have been in this movie. After 40 years of trauma and the PTSD she suffered in the first, in the 2018 Halloween movie, it was 40 years, and Michael was locked up behind bars, secured. He was not getting out. He probably could have died in prison if it wasn't for his, crazy-ass doctor setting him loose. But she knew where he was at. He was locked and confined away, and she's still suffering all through this PTSD, and, was prepping to kill him as if he's out on the loose. Okay, but it felt like a regression of her arc and not a progression. Because in this movie, after only 4 years, and he's disappeared, meaning he's not dead, he's still alive somewhere out there, somehow she has moved on, especially after he killed her frickin' daughter. I mean, if anything, that would ramp things up more for me. She was hell-bent on stopping Myers for 40 years, and all of a sudden he gets out, kills her daughter, 4 years passes by, and she's kind of like, well, I've just made my peace with it, I'm good. The hell with that. F that. No, you should drive her even more. That's where I feel like in proper planning, the 2018 movie, this Laurie should have been in the 2018 movie, and the Laurie in 2018 should have been the Laurie in this one. But, I do have my phone here as a little bit of a cheat sheet, so I'm going to go over a couple, maybe nitpicky things. It's just things that I noticed when watching the movie that, I just jotted down here, so I'm just going to bring them up here, kind of in bullet point fashion. One thing I didn't quite get was, why did Michael have to drag Corey into the sewer? I mean, he drags him in there to kill him, obviously, but why let him wake up? Why wait for all that? Why not just kill him? Drag him in there and kill him right away. I don't get it. Was he dragging him in there to transfer evil to him? Was he dragging him in there to molest him? I mean, I don't know. And it's just one of those things where, did that really need to happen that way? I feel like maybe if Corey just stumbled across the sewer, after he gets thrown off of the bridge by the bully band members, maybe if he had found it by accident, I think I could have accepted that a little bit more. Just seems odd. Like, the whole sequence of events there just seems odd. And the ending procession at the very end of this movie where Michael's dead and they strap him to the roof of the car and they're taking him to the junkyard to throw him in that shredder. That wasn't necessary. That legit was probably my second biggest gripe with this movie, is that part just felt so unnecessary. It felt so cheesy and dumb. Had it been just maybe Laurie and Allison and Hawkins and maybe a couple officers and they just chucked his body in there, okay. Still a little over the top, but okay, I get it. You want to make sure that this effing thing is destroyed. But the whole townsfolk, I mean, come on, that's dumb. That is just really dumb. Again, going to the cheat sheet, because believe it or not, there were things that I liked in this movie. There were things that I thought this movie did really well. Right off the bat, I will say that I really liked David Gordon Green's direction in this movie. Now, we all know that coming into this franchise of 2018, horror movies were not his speciality. And to be honest, I'm not saying that they are now, but you can see that he has grown as a horror movie director, at least. I do believe that this movie, Halloween Ends, was probably his best effort. I believe it is his best looking Halloween movie in his trilogy. And going back to Corey, one of the things that I absolutely loved about this movie is the whole junkyard scene. That scene, along with his kill of the radio DJ right after that, I believe is just quintessential Myers and Halloween, even if it's Corey. I was talking with some people online and some people after the fact, after we got out of the movie, that, once he put that mask on, if the franchise wanted to continue on from that point as Corey, as the new shape, as the new boogeyman, so to speak, I could have bought it. I really could have bought it. I think he was excellent. I think his kills were just crazy good in those scenes. Once again, the score is on point. I mean, it has been through all three of these films. I mean, John Carpenter, his son Cody, and Daniel Davies, they just continually knock it out of the park. And if they ever come back to do another Halloween movie, whether it's another reboot or if they try to do something to continue this on, if Carpenter is no longer with us, I really do hope they bring back Cody and Daniel Davies to do the score, because I feel like for at least Halloween, they've become the new Alan Howarth. Like, their sound is just incredible. I love it. And I hope they are lifers with this franchise. Plus, going back to something I had mentioned before, I do like that this movie did try to do something different. I mean, it had the balls to do what Halloween 5 should have done after Halloween 4. Whether we disagree with that or not, I do like the decision to try something new and different. I just don't like it being in the third part of a trilogy. Plus, I do like seeing a bit of a connection there between Halloween Kills and this with Corey, as if you remember what Laurie said in Halloween Kills about the more Michael kills, the more he transcends. Now, I don't believe that means like the more Michael kills, the more powerful and hulking he becomes. I think it means more, the more he kills, the more he loses that humanity inside of him. And we see that with Corey in this movie. Like, the first kill he makes is an accident, quote unquote, with the little boy, with Jeremy. His second kill of the homeless man, you could tell he still is like, he doesn't feel right, but he becomes more and more comfortable with it. So the more he kills, the more transcendent he's becoming in not being a human being anymore. He's becoming evil. He's becoming a shape of a man. Plus, another connection that I don't know how many people are aware of too is a little bit of a callback to Halloween 2018. If you remember in that movie, the kid that gets killed in the backyard by Michael Myers, who ends up being impaled on the fence, tells Michael,
"Have you ever really liked a girl and you just couldn't have her?"
That seems a lot like Corey in this movie. Like, he has the line, "If I can't have her, nobody can."
If I can't have her, no one will.
So in a way, I kind of feel like that's a look into Michael in a way. Maybe he feels that way about Laurie. Maybe he's so obsessive over Laurie that he's like, well, if I can't have her, nobody can. If I can't kill her, nobody can. Maybe, reaching for straws here. And one of the other things I'll point out that I kind of noticed after the fact, so I'm not going to take credit for this. I can't remember where I heard it from or saw it. It was either on Twitter or it was on Facebook. But the fact that they used the fonts for the original 3 Halloween movies for these 3 films. I mean, the fonts match up, like the title fonts. So you have the original Halloween and Halloween 2018, title fonts are similar. Halloween Kills and Halloween 2, fonts are similar. Halloween 3 and Halloween Ends, the fonts are similar. And I feel like that was intentionally done, because I do feel like David Gordon Green kind of remade the original trilogy. I mean, the 2018 movie is a remake of the original Halloween with certain differences. Halloween Kills is a remake of Halloween 2. I mean, it's a little bloodier. It's more the prototypical slasher. Laurie spends most of the time in the hospital in that movie. And then Halloween Ends is kind of a remake of Halloween 3 in a way, with still keeping Michael involved. It's a story that doesn't involve Michael. If you kind of view it that way, David Gordon Green paid tribute in almost the ultimate way to the original 3 Halloween movies by kind of carrying those themes in a subtle remake of each of those movies. Plus, one more thing with Ends too, if you really think about it, there's a lot of people that's speculating where Michael's evil comes from. Is it in him? Is it in the mask? Well, if it's in the mask, like Corey keeps obsessing over in the movie, what was Halloween 3? Halloween 3 was essentially a story about haunted masks that kill people. Halloween Ends, it's a story about a haunted mask that kind of takes over people and maybe transfers evil from one person to another. But I'm going to wrap up this video here. I may come back later on and do a more in-depth review, maybe even a retrograde once I go through the entire Halloween franchise. I'll more than likely get to this one, and then I'll dive into it a little bit more there. But I just wanted to get my thoughts out on Halloween Ends. I personally enjoyed it. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It's somewhere in the middle of the franchise for me, and that's me being honest. That's not me being wishy-washy. I've watched the film twice. It's not like I'm coming on here not wanting to piss off hardcore fans that hated it and not wanting to piss off fans that loved it. I legit liked it, but it's not in my top films of the franchise, and it's not in my bottom films of the franchise. It has its own set of problems, and as of right now, I think I would put it right about on the same level as Halloween Kills. The Halloween Kills I enjoyed as well. I do understand that has its own glaring warts and problems, but that's like any Halloween movie. Any fan of the franchise knows, at least for me, that the original is the only perfect Halloween movie. I mean, there might be fans that feel differently, but for me, there's only one perfection, and that's the original. Outside of that, every Halloween movie from then on out has its own share of problems, and I guess it just depends on how much you are willing to accept and how much you are willing to look past in the sake of enjoyment. I enjoy The Curse of Michael Myers, and for a lot of people, that movie is trash. But I really like it. I'm able to look past a lot of the problems I have with it out of enjoyment of watching that movie. And I feel the same way with Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. There's a lot of problems in those movies. Don't get me wrong, they are not perfect. And I dare even say they might not even be really good movies. They're good, but that doesn't mean you can't sit back and enjoy a movie for what it is. And I do feel like in time, this movie will find its place. A lot like Friday the 13th Part 5. When that movie came out, it got a lot of flack and a lot of hate. And in the next movie, they had to scrap what they were going to do with Tommy Jarvis and potentially turn him into the new Jason. And then they had to bring Jason back in zombie form, and it turned out to be my favorite film in the franchise. But even Halloween 3, when that movie came out, people hated it, and they had to bring back Michael Myers in Part 4. A lot like those movies, I feel like in time, fans will find those movies, and I feel like they will get their audience, and they will be viewed at differently in, say, 5, 10, 20 years than they are right now when they're just brand new and fresh. I feel like it's an open wound that a lot of people think is not going to heal. And I do believe in time that this movie, Halloween Ends, will be revisited, and it may have a lot more of a favorable reaction down the road, just not right now. But anyways, I'm almost scared to ask this, but what are your guys' thoughts on Halloween Ends if you have seen it? I know a lot of people don't like it. I also know a lot of people that do like it. So please post your comments about the movie below, and please let's keep it civil. I know people have been fighting across social media on this movie. I don't want to bring that here. Just voice your opinion in a respectful way. Try to be respectful of other people's feelings, because like me, I'm not coming on here trying to trash people that hate the movie. I understand it's rubbed people the wrong way, and I just don't view the movie the same way as you do. It doesn't mean that we're any less of Halloween fans or any more of Halloween fans. We just have different perspectives on how we view the movie. So anyways, please post your comments below. And as always, like, comment, and subscribe. Adios. Now, GTFO.